After acquiring the first overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft, many Wizards fans are now wondering, what is the floor and ceiling for the squad this upcoming year? Chase Coburn joins the show. We break it all down and more on today's Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Alex Sarr, and you're listening to Locked On Wizards.
DC family, you are locked on to the Locked On Wizards podcast, where you are part of our family. I'm your host, Abdullah Ayubi. And on today's show, we'll break down the floor and ceiling for this Wizards squad next season. We'll talk a little bit about AJ Dybantsa, Darryn Peterson, Cameron Boozer. And also, we'll touch on AD's future here in Washington, talk a little about the Wizards front office as well. I am joined by the youngest and brightest in charge, Chase Coburn. Chase, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I appreciate you having me on. Had to rock the newly acquired Trae Young Wizards jersey. And I got to say, I was ecstatic when the Wizards got number one. And I had people in my comments who said, I think this kid is a bandwagon Wizards fan, which I didn't even know those guys existed. But if we do have some bandwagon Wizards fans, welcome to the team, man. We're excited. I am not a bandwagon. I'm a diehard. And man, it's been a long time since I've been this excited about Wizards basketball.
I mean, Chase, I have your reaction here. I mean, this is gold. This is gold. I went crazy, but this reaction blows my out of the park. I love it. This is the passion that we need, Chase.
It was completely authentic. It was literally 5 seconds after. It was Mother's Day, so you had to do what the mother said. I said, Mom, me and Dad, we need to go in the car for a minute. We just need to watch something for a second. And then I just went absolutely nuclear. So excited that the Wiz have number one, but certainly a lot of decisions to make this offseason.
Chase, I got to ask, too, how old are you, man? I mean, your content is amazing, but the fact that you're just that young, when did you start watching Wizards basketball?
I am 15 years old. In fact, the first thing I ever did broadcasting was the Washington Wizards. There are, I want to say, 78 episodes of a private podcast on voice memos that no one will ever hear because it was very, very poorly produced, but that was the first thing I ever did. The main season I really got into was the 2021 Russell Westbrook season. So I am forever a Russell Westbrook Wizards guy.
Awesome. Well, Chase, this Wizard squad next year is going to look a lot different. There isn't any more tanking. You're going to go out there and compete. After acquiring Trae Young, after acquiring AD, and I'm assuming it's AJ Dybantsa at one, but we'll talk about that in the second segment. Where do you see this team's ceiling and floor this upcoming year?
I think the floor is much higher than what we've seen the last 3 years, which is what at the best it was the third or the second worst record in the NBA. And so I think the floor is just inevitably higher if Trae Young plays 60 games. Say you get 25 at the bare minimum out of Anthony Davis. I think already your floor is higher, considering you're going to get another season of progression from Alex Sarr, another season of progression from Keyshawn George, another season of progression from Trey Johnson. I'm a huge Will Riley guy, another season of progression from Will Riley. And then, of course, adding whichever it is, Dybantsa, Peterson, Boozer, whoever you add, and obviously decisions to make there, whoever you add, that's automatically going to raise your floor. So I see a floor for this team at, say, everything goes the worst it can go, 30 wins. The ceiling, I think, is where it gets interesting. I think the ceiling is around 45 to 50. I think you get 65, 70 games out of Davis. Trae Young plays well. You have some good perimeter defenders alongside him. The team just meshes well. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility, considering it's not like a young team that hasn't had experience like this before. You are adding two experienced veterans who have led their team to wins in the postseason. It wouldn't surprise me if we're looking at the Wizards almost as like a this year's Atlanta Hawks team or a Toronto Raptors team that suddenly kind of made that jump and didn't even need to deal with the play-in. I think that's really a best case scenario as a fifth or a sixth seed, in my opinion.
You do know, Chase, the Wizards haven't won 50 games in nearly 47 years. They did win 49. I think it was in 2017, but still it wasn't 50. And I completely agree with you. I think if everything goes well, and a big part of when I say everything goes well is Anthony Davis and Trae Young, because last year when we saw Trae Young on the floor, Chase, this team looked different. This team lacked a pure point guard, a guy that can hold down the floor, that point general before Trae Young was there. And when he played in the limited action, I mean, offensively, this team looked a lot better. And I think this past year when you won 17 games, I think you have to double it, Chase. 30 again, you're at a point right now where the fan base, obviously people will be coming back in. The number one overall pick helps, acquiring Trae Young, AD, seeing the young guys ball out. But you have to go up there and produce. And especially in the Eastern Conference, I think the play-in should be the bare minimum.
100%.
And I think the ceiling, especially after acquiring a talent like Dybantsa in year one, I think fifth seed. I really think, and again, everything goes well. And we don't know. We just have to see how everything pans out. But I it's a tough road to just understand as a Wizards fan that next year we're not going to be contending. We're trying to make that jump in between contending and tanking, and then 2027 years where I expect this team to potentially make a playoff run.
Yeah.
But again, I just think everything has to go well, and then health with AD and Trae, it's a huge factor.
I also do think as well, I think we pay so much attention to this core that was together. Obviously, you're adding some guys, but they did win 17 games. I still feel like you have a long way to go. You're not going to jump up. I've seen people that are like, they're going to be the 3 seed. No, they're not going to be the 3 seed, right? It's just you have to set a realistic expectation here. I do think doubling has to be at least a decent goal. I think you should make the play-in. You have too much talent not to make the play-in. And I also don't think this front office is satisfied yet. We never thought they would go and try to acquire a guy like Trae Young. We certainly never thought there was no rumors whatsoever surrounding a possible Anthony Davis acquisition. And then that took place. Who knows what Will Dawkins and Michael Winger have in store? We've seen, Giannis to Washington, KD to Washington, all this stuff. I wouldn't quite go there, but I do think that this team has at least another go-getter maybe in place or another possible avenue for success. I don't think this front office is done. Plus, I will say this. I think the one thing that's going to make next year a lot of fun is it's the first year where the Wizards are not trying to lose, right? Past few years when they've lost a game, it's okay, you're increasing your lottery odds, right? It's tough to watch, but you're increasing your lottery odds. This year's team is not trying to lose, but at the same time, it's going to be a lot of fun because they're also, I don't believe, going to dismantle anything to try and win. Every single night, they're going to be going on the floor saying, let's go and win tonight. That's going to be the strategy, but the strategy is not going to be, let's put all of our baskets in winning this season. It's going to be, we don't want to lose, but we also don't want to mortgage our future to make us a contender right away. So I think they're going to try to do this methodically. I have complete trust in Will Dawkins and Michael Winger. Nothing they've shown me so far as a front office has told me that I shouldn't put my trust in them. But I do think next year is going to be a lot of fun just in terms of building the culture and building the mentality for Wizards basketball. And again, we'll have to see where that translates in the win-loss.
I love how you brought up mortgaging the future because that was a common theme with Ernie Grunfeld and Tommy Shepard, where it was just stuck in the middle. You were 35 and 47 back-to-back years with Bradley Beal and the whole Supermax contract. This front office, Chase, I really think the plate that they were dealt with and what they've been doing the past 3 years.
They turned Bradley Beal and Kyle Kuzma into Trae Young and Anthony Davis pretty much. And in 3 years, they've been unbelievable. They really inherited a mess, and they've really made something really solid from it.
Yeah, the asset management by Will Dawkins, it's just been something that I really haven't seen here in so long when it comes to management. And I think that's why a lot of Wizards fans, despite the lack of success on the court the past 3 years, and obviously because we were tanking, you have confidence because you planned everything. You have the blueprint. It's just going out there and next year executing it. So going back to the main question, the floor, I think 30, 35 wins, and I think the ceiling is that 45 to 50 if all goes well. And I think a lot of them also banking on the fact that this is the Eastern Conference. I mean, next year you have the Pacers. You think the Pacers will be a top 5 team in the East, Chase, with a healthy Tyrese?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of thinking that too. I mean, the teams that I think will be better than the Wizards next year, definitively. I think Cleveland's going to be better. I think New York is going to be better. Those 2 teams in the conference finals. I view Detroit as a better team at this point. If Tyrese Halliburton is back healthy, I still view Indiana as a better team. I think they have better experience. They're more well coached. Just trying to go down the line. I think Boston's obviously going to be a lot better full season than Jason Tatum. So there's 5. Philly's an interesting one, right? They're another team where, again, hit or miss from an injury luck standpoint. But, there are some teams right in there. Of course, you're one injury away. But, again, you also have 2 of the top squiggle 40 players in the NBA. That alone, plus the number 1 draft pick, plus a young core that's shown a lot of promising signs. It's funny in the NBA how you could quickly go from irrelevant to relevant. Take San Antonio as a perfect example. They went from having the number 2 overall pick this time last year, taking Dylan Harper, and look where they are now. So the Wizards don't have a Victor Wembanyama, but it's not unreasonable to say the Wizards are going to be in the playoffs without even needing the play-in. It's also not unreasonable to say, even with all this talent, there are a lot of risks, and they're going to be a 10th seed. I think anywhere in between that, range makes sense for Washington next year.
Let us know down below your floor and ceiling for this squad next year. When we come back, we'll talk number one. Who's the guy? A lot of people say it's AJ. A lot of people also love Darryn Peterson. There's also a minority out there that think Cameron Boozer is a certified baller. We'll talk about that more when we come back. Today's episode of Locked On Wizards is brought to you by, quote, missed calls and slow follow-ups are silent killers for businesses. That's how money gets left on the table without people even realizing it. That's why today's episode is brought to you by, quote, spelled Quo, the business communication system built so you never miss a call. Quo helps businesses keep every conversation organized by letting your entire team manage calls and texts from one shared number. No more drop messages, missed opportunities, or disconnected miscommunication. It's designed for how modern businesses actually operate. The part I love, everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. And the AI summaries save serious time by logging calls into highlighting the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Money's on the line. Always say hello with Quo. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode of Locked On Wizards is also brought to you by DoorDash. Postseason is heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag with DoorDash. Fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stored, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights when your team stresses you out, especially if you're a Thunder or Spurs fan watching this series. Hopefully it goes to 7. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need a dessert now. Those late-night interviews hit, and suddenly you need chips at midnight. DoorDash is built exactly for that. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gears, or whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Joined by Chase Coburn, one of the brightest and youngest in the sports media world. Chase, what is your current rankings of the top 3 guys? Are you a Dybantsa guy? It seemed like it from your reaction after the Wizards got one, but how do you view Darryn Peterson? How big is the gap between those two? And where do you view Cameron Boozer?
So as soon as I said Dybantsa, that was the immediate reaction. I view Dybantsa as the number one in this class. I am a diehard UConn Huskies fan, and I remember when UConn was playing BYU earlier in the year. That was really my first glimpse of a full game of AJ Dybantsa, and I think he went for 18, maybe 20 points in the second half. BYU almost made a comeback, which was really in Boston, so close to UConn, and it felt like everything was going against AJ. BYU could not make any shots outside of him, and he just took over the game. And we saw that extrapolated over the full season. I say he's Kevin Durant Jr. I think he's got just as similar a skill set. I think he's very, very consistent. And the one thing, too, with the Wizards is I've heard a lot of people say that Peterson is a better prospect. And I do think there is an argument there. But I do think if you're the Wizards and you're in this position and you get the number 1 overall draft pick and you win the lottery, literally, I think you can't screw this up. And there are just as many highs with Peterson as there is Dybantsa, maybe more, but there are also more lows. Some of the injury concerns, right? Some of the off-the-court concerns that some people alluded to inside that Kansas organization. And from a talent standpoint, he could be a dominant scorer and a dominant offensive player. But I like Dybantsa's versatility. I like his mid-range game. I like his consistency. And I also think he's going to be the more reliable player. The best way I put it from a talent standpoint is don't pass up on Kevin Durant to draft Greg Oden. Because Greg Oden was not a bust. Greg Oden just suffered injuries. And I'm just afraid from what I've seen of Peterson suffering those injuries. And just as someone who has watched this Wizards team suffer for so long, I don't think the Wizards can take that risk. If you're going to maybe trade down, which I've heard that possibility, that's a different discussion for a different day. See what assets you get in return. Because I don't think the gap is that large where you wouldn't even consider trading down. But if you stay at number 1, I think you have to pick AJ Dybantsa in that spot. And I don't view Cameron Boozer as a guy who has the ceiling of a Dybantsa or Peterson, even if he has a high floor and will be an impact player for years to come.
I agree with you, Chase. I think AJ is going to be really special. 6'9" with shoes on, 42-inch vertical. The mid-range game reminds me of SGA/Tracy McGrady. I mean, going to Darryn Peterson, I see shades of Tyrese Maxey. I know he's like 6'5" with shoes on, but again, you brought up the availability aspect. That's the biggest question mark with him. With AJ, I don't think there's really any much questions you could bring up. The
Right.
guy wants to be number one, Chase, ever since he was in 8th grade, number one prospect every single year. He was built for it. He went to Utah Prep to make sure that he focuses on basketball, no distractions around him. What he did at BYU this past year willed his team in that first round. And they lost to Texas, dropped 35-10, did everything he could. With Peterson, how much, like, what was your thoughts on the whole creatine situation? Do you buy into it? I'm not saying like it was something that was made up, but it just seems so odd, Chase. A guy that talented and just him being pulled on and off the floor and then him playing games and him missing out on crucial time. Just what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of rumors that spread, and so I don't like to try to get into too many of those when it comes to a guy like Darryn Peterson. What we do know is that, I mean, I don't know the exact games off the top of my head, but there were quite a few portions of the season where Darryn Peterson was unavailable. And where you want to, if you want to talk about that as an effort issue, that was a rumor. If you want to talk about it from an injury issue, the cramping, I've heard so much. I don't want to exactly pinpoint one issue, but either way, it feels like there were a ton of things that were maybe going against him from an injury standpoint. And that is too much of a risk for the Wizards to take on. Abdullah, my question to you though, is I know we're kind of in agreement here with AJ at number one. My question for you, what would you need from a package from, let's say, Utah saying they want to get their homegrown guy in Dybantsa? What would you ask for? It has to be Ace Bailey in that package, right? Because I've gone through this in my mind. It has to be Bailey.
And Chase, I love that you brought that up because Jazz fans think I'm crazy that Ace Bailey's on the table. I mean, they think Ace Bailey has the ceiling of a top 10 player in the league. I mean, guy's really talented, but AJ is going to be really good too, Chase. They're just not willing to give up. I saw Jazz fans when I said that the baseline of negotiations from moving down from 1 to 2 should be the second overall pick, Ace Bailey, and a future first. And many people thought I was crazy. I think that's what it should be, Chase, because, again, AJ is going to be a star, and Ace Bailey averaged 13 points per game last year, and playing alongside Keontae George and Utah doing what they did, they were also tanking. I just think the number one overall pick, it's worth a lot. And I know many people don't think there's a huge gap between AJ and Darryn Peterson, but I'm sorry, Utah, we know you want him because, again, It was the whole connection with Utah, BYU. I mean, Jazz fans, Chase, just really don't want to give up, or not give up, but they're not willing to let go of Ace Bailey in the package.
It would kind of be ironic if Ace Bailey this entire time, wanted to go to Washington. He goes to Washington. Dybantsa, if we find out it is true that he wants to go to Utah, he gets to go to Utah. But I guess really the answer or the question I have for Jazz fans is, if you don't want to give up Bailey, how bad do you want Dybantsa? Are you satisfied with taking Peterson? If I were them and you look into the concerns and you don't think they're as severe as maybe the media has made it out to be, you're possibly in your mind not trading anything and getting a guy who has just as great a ceiling, who would fit in perfectly with your core, if you want me to be honest with you. And for the Wizards, I think from a value standpoint, you don't do the trade without Bailey. But then it kind of becomes the predicament of, if you do the trade for Bailey and then you draft Peterson, how are all these guys going to play? You have 3 backcourt players, and I don't think any of them are going to play small forward. I guess you could put Bailey at the 3. I don't think they would do that. So I guess it would be an interesting situation for sure to have that many kind of ball dominant scorers. But I think from a value standpoint, if I'm the Wizards, I don't even entertain the idea if Ace Bailey's not involved. At least they're going to have to make a really, really big offer. Because here's my thought too. Even if you're the Wizards, that if you're the Wizards and you're not completely in love with AJ and you're okay going with Darryn, you will 100% trade down. Because I think the Jazz have made it abundantly clear that they want AJ Dybantsa. And so you try to leverage that value of number 1 overall and see what you can get. So that's why I actually think the Wizards, I don't think we'd see a trade until a few days before. I think the Wizards are going to do their extensive research and see, do we love AJ this much? If not, we're going to get a guy who we think has just as much, if not more potential, as a better player on our board, and get some future assets. So I think that's really what the Wizards are going to be thinking over these next few months.
So you don't see a scenario, Chase, where they take Peterson at 1?
I can't. I just don't think it wouldn't make sense to me. Like, unless somehow Utah has changed their philosophy, like the owner's been all over Dybantsa for 4 years. Like, it would just shock me if the Wizards had their intel and it was, Utah, they're not going to give up much for Dybantsa. I think they would want him. I wouldn't make sense to me to take Peterson at 1. I just think you could get a lot of value from Utah in that deal.
Yeah, Jazz fans, again, like I said, they love Ace Bailey, but they also really love AJ Dybantsa. And I know we talk all this because, again, sports media, where we got to
Right.
come up with discussions. But I think the best direction, Chase, is stick and pick. You'll get a Sarr and Dybantsa, which again, this DC sports town has been starved deprived when it comes to the basketball team ever since John Wall had 1 year of Russell Westbrook, even Bradley Beal for a little bit, averaging 30 points per game, but didn't really get anywhere. But AJ Dybantsa playing alongside this young core and the vets that we have should be fun. One of those vets is Anthony Davis. I don't know if you've been keeping up, Chase, but he's been taking, I don't want to say jabs, but any chance he can get, he calls this Wizard squad bad instead of saying young. We'll get that when we come back here on Locked On Wizards.
You ever watch a game and think, man, those fans are probably going crazy right now? On Reddit, you're plugged into millions of fans who are just as hopeful, dramatic, analytical, and loyal as you are. Reddit is the app for authentic conversations about anything and everything. I covered the Dallas Mavericks, and as soon as Cooper Flag hard launched with his girlfriend, I went straight to the Mavericks subreddit because I had to see exactly what Mavs fans are thinking and saying about that. I also need to go anytime a call goes against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Go to the Thunder subreddit. You got to see what they're complaining about. Go check it out for any time a team gets kicked out of the playoffs or advances in the playoffs. It's incredible to have a real-time reaction from all these fans from all over the place. It's like the ultimate second screen. You're checking reactions, catching up on news, or just seeing how everyone feels about the things in the moment. And there's certain stories that are only going to be on the NBA subreddit because they're just niche and specific enough that only certain people care about it, and that's probably you. Reddit is where the real fans hang out. Download the Reddit app and dive into your favorite team or the Dallas Mavericks for hot takes, fresh memes, and a group chat that literally never sleeps. Download the Reddit app today.
Chase, Anthony Davis is a name that many Wizards fans, it just seems like very polarizing as of right now because there are a good amount of people out there that want him to be traded. They don't think he wants to be in Washington. And there's also others saying that, hey, plug him and play. Him and Alex Sarr would be a fun duo in the front court. What is your current stance right now on Anthony Davis?
The current stance is, I don't know what he's thinking, but what are the Wizards going to get in return? Like, I hate to say, but basketball is a business, right? They got a very, very great deal, in my opinion, on getting Anthony Davis. Was that because the Mavericks' new regime was trying to make up for a disastrous Luka Doncic trade? Or was that seriously the market? Like, we think of Anthony Davis and we view him as a guy when healthy, hold that thought, is a top 30 player in the world, maybe even better. But it's the when healthy part. And the injuries have been such a concern over the past few years that he's getting older. We haven't seen him play playoff basketball in a while. We haven't exactly seen the turmoil of what it would do to his body to play over the course of a full season for a contender. I just don't exactly know what the value is. And again, I actually think he's fine in DC, right? I do think he has come in with a little bit of a, let me feel this out, because look, he's a 10-time All-Star. He's an NBA 75 guy, a champion. Like, he's kind of coming in here with some, gosh, I'm going to the franchise that many people view as the worst in history. Like, he's got to come in there with that type of antenna. But I do think that at some point, I think he wants to be here, but if not, he's got to tough it up because I don't think there's much of a market that Will Dawkins and Michael Winger would be like, we got to get that guy. The only thing I could ever see, and it's not going to happen, would be using his salary and a ton of assets to get Giannis. That would be the only reasonable way I could ever see Anthony Davis being traded. It would have to be something, just off the top of my head, of like Davis's salary, Trae Johnson, Will Riley, and 2 future firsts. It would have to be like something like that. That's the only way I see the Wizards getting rid of him. I just wouldn't understand getting such a great deal on a guy with such high of a ceiling if he stays healthy and then just shipping him off. Like, I do think he will remain in Washington and certainly through the season because I think the market won't be there until teams see him back on the floor and see him productive after some injuries last year.
Yeah, to me, it's just so funny because AD, like you said, top 75 player, respect him. He's one of the greatest to ever play the power forward position. It's just, you have to go out there and prove that you're still a valuable commodity. It's tough because you haven't played a full stretch amount of games consistently to the point where an organization will trust you to go out there and help you win. And look how this young core is built here in DC. I mean, how fun would it be, Chase, to see Alex Sarr and AD? That's exciting duo. I think they can really complement each other really well. Yeah. And on top of that, Trae Young, you have Trae Young at point guard. I think Trae Young, from when it comes to a talent standpoint, is probably AD's best teammate in his NBA career. And I'm looking at it also, you get the number 1 overall pick. I don't know if you've noticed, Chase, about the whole number 1 overall pick after acquiring AD, how the Pelicans, when they traded away AD, they get number 1, and then the Mavs got number one after trading him, and the Wizards got number one. So that was kind of funny. But do you see a scenario, Chase, where Davis gets traded at the deadline, or do you see him playing out the full year?
I could see a scenario with the deadline. Again, I don't think the Wizards, the best way of putting it is the Wizards next year. I think Will Dawkins kind of said this too at his end of your press conference. The Wizards are not trying to lose next year. They're also not trying to win. Like, they are not trying to, again, mortgage the future and go all in on being a title contender next year. And if those views don't align with Davis, he could be gone at the deadline. I could even see a scenario where the Wizards are a playoff team and they deal him, sell high on him, and think about trying to get as much value as they can. Again, this front office works in mysterious ways, but they work, and they've done a great job. I do think there is a possibility Davis gets traded. I just can't see it happening in the offseason unless, again, it is an insane package, like for a guy like Giannis, which I don't think it will be. But I also do think that, like, I think with Davis, seriously, like, I'm not saying the Wizards are the perfect situation to be in, but if you're ever going to want to prove your worth, he says he wants one last hurrah. He says he wants to win an MVP, a defensive player of the year, do all this stuff. I don't know if anywhere that's in the cards. But how about instead be the number one player on a team that is getting the number one pick? You're getting one of possibly a future franchise player. You're getting a franchise number one to play alongside you in his rookie year. You're getting Trae Young. You're getting a really dominant young core, a city that is embracing you, a city that I think if the Wizards reach the peak of their powers is a basketball city. Why wouldn't he want to be here? Why would he not want to be in DC? Like, you're telling me you'd rather go to Toronto? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying they're in a worse position than the Wizards, but it's like, out of all the bad teams that you could go to, the one with Trae Young, the number one pick, a great center alongside you, a great young core, a city and a franchise that wants to embrace you and bring you in like it's your home, that sounds like a pretty solid place to be. And so I think he does want to be here. I think he will be here. How long that is the case is still to be determined.
Yeah, again, I just was not a big fan of him saying bad team instead of young team, Chase. I mean, it's such an easy replacement of words when he was describing the Wizards on many podcasts that he's been on recently. Yeah. But again, he doesn't have much leverage. You have to go out there and prove that you can go play. And if you can flip him at the deadline, you peak his value. I mean, we've seen what Will Dawkins has done with the Jordan Pooles of the world, the CJ McCollums of the world. You get these guys, you get draft capital on top of that. But I do want to see Davis go out there and play alongside Sarr, because that's going to be a fun duo, Chase. I think defensively, this team, and we'll talk about it right now, should be better. How much of a difference will this team look defensively compared to years prior?
I think they'll be fantastic. I think the one thing is, I actually think the Wizards are going to maybe overpay for some defensive value, because look, the Wizards fans love Trae Young. I'm rocking the Trae Young jersey right now. Like, we're embracing him, and he's embraced the city, and it's almost like a match made in heaven. At the same time, even with what he's done with Atlanta, people know that there are limitations with his defensive ability. And I know it's a really lame argument, but consistently now, Trae Young is yet to prove that he is an competent, average defender in this league. And so I think the way that you need to win with him is to surround him with defenders. And so if you're able to keep Davis and he's healthy, and you have Alex Sarr, I think Keyshawn George is a solid defender. That's where I actually think Bilal Coulibaly could get that extension this summer and could actually be in the starting lineup right away, because I think the Wizards are going to want someone who is very, very versatile defensively, can guard a ton of positions, is very, very athletic. Like, I think at the peak of his powers, long-term, Bilal Coulibaly could be an all-defensive type guy. And I think the Wizards may want that and may extend that to then play alongside Trae Young and then have some of these great scorers come off the bench. And so, look, you have options for sure. But I just think if you're the Wizards, there will be a greater prioritization on the defensive side of the ball. It's almost like, even though Trae Young has his limitations defensively, the Wizards will overcompensate by adding so many defenders around him to maybe mask some of those weaknesses.
So do you see Bilal starting at the 2? This upcoming year, Chase?
It depends on what they do in the draft. It wouldn't shock me if the starting lineup for opening day next year is Young, Coulibaly, Dybantsa, Davis, and Sarr. That would make sense to me. And like having Keyshawn and Will Riley and Trey Johnson as those scorers off the bench. Like, think about if their progression coming off the bench. Like, I think sometimes a lot of people think, let's start the best 5. Let's start the 5 that fits, right? Like, who says? Obviously, Trae and AD are going to start, and like Sarr would start. So I guess it would have to be one of those guys. I don't know. I think if you're the Wizards, you need to, and I think this is the conversation long-term for this franchise as well. And what I'm going to talk about on my podcast, A Wiz Talk with Chase, coming up, is simply like, you got to figure out who you want. You can't keep the 9 guys who have the most potential. You got to keep the 9 guys that are going to fit most. Who are your stars? Who are your role players? Who are your contributors? You got to figure that out. And I think this season, while again not trying to lose, will also be the who was a part of our core year for the Washington Wizards. And part of that may be shifting around the rotation and maybe some surprises in that rotation. And I think it's great that the Wizards are giving Brian Keefe, who has been here with the young core, that they're giving him the opportunity to really play that out.
It's going to be an exciting offseason. Number 1 overall pick. A lot of decisions have to be made when it comes to this rotation. Before we head out on here, Chase, this was fun. Hopefully we do it more in the future. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yes, guys, if you go at Chase Coburn, Instagram, Twitter, or you can look up my name, Chase Coburn, on YouTube. You guys are going to be able to find all my content. And then Wiz Talk with Chase, a podcast, YouTube, Instagram mainly. We've been posted a lot on there, and we're going to continue to start posting more and continuing to really add to some great Wizards content over the course of the offseason. And then, of course, once we get there in the season. Abdullah, I really appreciate you having me on. And it's crazy to say, but it's a really, really fun time to be a Washington Wizards fan. Enjoy it, man.
And remember, we were here from the beginning. We didn't start supporting this team just recently. We've been here for a while. Make sure to check out Chase's stuff.
We have been here for the Xavier Cooks, Isaiah Todd starting lineup days.
Isaac Bonga. I mean, it's been rough, but hey, times have changed here in the District of Columbia. We thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Wizards. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Wizards so you can get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Wizards ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonwizards.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel on audio. Make sure you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. That is Chase Coburn. I am Abdullah Ayubi. Go Wizards.